What's up, everybody? Today we are taking a virtual look at the Nukeproof Scout 290. This is the #1 most requested bike for me to review on the channel. And I've tried to get one for years and I have not been able to get one. So we're going to do the next best thing today and take a virtual look. This is not a review. I know a lot of you guys are curious what I think about this bike with the information that we have about it. Okay, we're here on Nukeproof's website. It is a sharp looking bike. Now, having been around a lot of bikes, I have a feeling this is actually the 27.5. Let's see if we can do some sleuthing here. Yes, that's the 27.5 tire. You can just tell by the stance of it. It's just, the tires almost look like plus tires. Just proportionally, they look a little bit beefier. So that's ironic that on the Nukeproof Scout 290, they have the 27.5 model pictured. Sharp looking bike. I love that we don't have a huge gusset. It just looks really well designed. I actually really like the cable tie here. We've got external brake, external shifter, and just a quick internal port there for the dropper. It looks real tidy. We got a Lyric up here, and this looks like it has a lot of travel. It looks like a 150, which I'll have to go check the 27.5 model because the 29 is not a 150. It's a 130, 140 for the race version. Anyway, kind of interesting to see the 275 on the splash page for the Scout 290. That's funny. All right, let's dive in. Now, all of this is marketing copy. And working in the industry, I want you guys to know that the purpose of this is to inform people about the bike, what its purpose is, who it might be good for, and to get you hyped up to buy it. That is what marketing is. Every company needs marketing. It's how we share the news of the new bike with the world and tell them about it. So marketing is not a bad thing, but we need to understand the difference between marketing and facts. And some companies, this is not directed at Nukeproof, this is just information about the industry. Some companies straight up lie in their marketing and say this climbs like an XC bike and descends like a downhill bike, and it's so supple where you need it and so stiff where you need it. And a lot of that is hyping it up to be what we want it to be, and that's not necessarily reflective of reality. That's why my bike reviews are so important, and anyone's bike reviews. It tells you what it's actually like in contrast to what the marketing copy. That said, it's important to look at the marketing copy because it helps us see what they were thinking about and what they're going for with this bike. So let's read this. The Scout takes you back to minimal fuss, raw mountain biking. It will sharpen your skills, forcing you to read the trail ahead, seeking out the best lines to stay smooth and carry speed. Whether it's embracing your spirit of adventure or attacking the trail, the Scout 290 is designed as a do-it-all hardtail. All right, cool. So they didn't use words like down country. They didn't use words like enduro. I actually think this is pretty great marketing copy. It's not overhyped. It's not overpromising. It just looks like it's meant to be a hardtail to be ridden just about everywhere. Versatility is the name of the game, and its low bottom bracket, slack head angle, and stiff frame allow you to tackle anything that you come across. So is it a stiff frame? I don't know. Here they're talking about stiff as a good thing. In the right hands, the Scout 290 is robust and versatile enough to provide comfort for longer XC rides, yet supple and confidence-inspiring enough to tackle steep, rough, and technical enduro trails with ease. All right, this is marketing speak, and that's what you're going to see on everything. So up here it says it's a stiff frame. Down here it says it's supple. You can't have both. You can, but very rarely do you have both. And so it's robust and versatile enough to provide comfort for longer XC rides, but it can also be an enduro bike. Now, my main job is consulting with people before they buy a bike. Over on Patreon, I work with people one-on-one, and I help them decide which bike would be good for them based on their budget, their riding style, and their local trails. It's a lengthy process, and I put a lot of time into it, so I charge for that. So many of these people that I consult with want a bike that climbs like an XC bike and descends like an enduro bike. We all do. Who doesn't? We want the best of everything. Over the past 4 years, I've ridden and reviewed over 70 hardtails, and I haven't found one that climbs like an XC bike and descends like an enduro bike. So we kind of need to adjust our expectations. You know, bikes today can be ridden anywhere. You can ride an enduro bike on an XC race, and you can take an XC race bike on an enduro track. You can do it, but that doesn't mean it's optimized for that, and you're going to struggle in some of those terrain. So for me, the secret when I'm consulting is learning enough about the person to know how hard are they going to push it? Are they hitting drops that are 1 to 2 meters big, or are they staying on the ground? Do they live for a nice sprint, and are they trying to race their buddies up the hill? Or are they looking for something that's playful on a flow trail? Or are they looking for something that's just going to win them enduro races? But depending on those answers, I will recommend a different bike to that person. So it's always a little bit hard for me when I see a marketing copy that says a bike can do all of those things and be everything to everyone. I've never found a bike, full suspension or hardtail, that does that. I'm just helping educate the viewers who read this stuff and eat it hook, line, and sinker like it's totally truth. It's a hard job working in marketing. You want people to get hyped about your bike. You want people to learn about it, but you also don't want to overpromise. Whichever wheel size you choose, Nukeproof guarantee you will enjoy every second of your ride. So get out and explore nature's playground. That is a big, bold statement, and that's marketing at its finest. Updated with longer geometry to accommodate even the tallest of riders, Nukeproof's engineers took the opportunity to soften the ride with a profile seat stay assembly, offering more compliance without compromising the torsional stiffness of the frame under pedaling. Now that's the Goldilocks right there. If you can get vertical compliance but torsional stiffness. Torsional stiffness when you're standing up, cranking, and just putting in power to get up a small short move or sprinting up a hill. You don't want the frame flexing on you when you're putting power in, because all that force and torque on the drivetrain can actually make the frame flex a little bit, and you want to transfer that to forward motion. If you'll notice in my reviews, when I'm riding a stiff frame, I talk about how it accelerates quickly. That's because it's torsionally stiff as well, and when you stomp on those pedals, it translates to forward motion. So the ideal scenario would be a compliant frame vertically. When you're hitting chatter, it's not transferring that all to your calves and arms and joints and body, but something that's torsionally stiff enough that when you do put down the power, the frame doesn't flex. And heavier riders and more powerful riders will feel that flex more, and lighter riders won't. It's expensive, but I really love it when frame companies change their tubing thickness and size and profile for each size so that smalls are more forgiving and comfortable, and extra larges are a little bit beefier so they don't ride like wet noodles. Tire clearance for up to 2.5-inch tires on 29-inch wheels. Note, can be fitted with up to 2.8 tires on 27.5 plus wheels. Great to know that. All right, let's look through the images here and look at the different specs. That's the Pro, the bling model. Comp, ooh, that's sharp. Got a Z2 on there. That looks good too. The race build. Wonder why they called it race. Frame only in overcast blue. Frame only concrete gray. It's a sharp looking frame. Ooh, ISCG tabs. We got a tab for a front derailleur for those who want that. Post mount. Threaded bottom bracket. One water bottle mount here, which is not surprising because it's from the UK, and all my friends in the UK say I ride for 2 hours and don't even drink water. It's different here in the desert. Very different. I love the external routing. Sharp looking bike though. Bravo, Nukeproof. Now, Nukeproof is owned by Chain Reaction and Wiggle. They also own Vitus. Vitus? I don't know how to say it. I've only seen it online. And because a huge bicycle retailer like Chain Reaction / Wiggle owns them, they have access to a ton of inventory and really good prices on components. So Chain Reaction, when they buy Shimano stuff, they buy it by the thousands, not by the tens like most bike manufacturers. So when you compare Nukeproof and Vitus prices to a small company like Ribble or Stanton or Kotick, of course the Nukeproof's going to be cheaper because their parent company gets components and tires and forks at half the price that these other companies do. And so they're able to pass that savings on to you because they're so big. Just like buying from a big retailer or a huge supermarket versus a ma and pa shop down the street. And so that's why Nukeproof and Vitus are able to get their prices so low. All right, let's compare these specs. We've got the Race, Comp, Pro, and Frame. So all of these have the same exact frame. I love it when companies do that, because then you can buy the spec that's in your budget and upgrade it and still have that same great frame at the heart of the bike. When you're shopping online, it's really important to understand your fork trim levels and what each fork has. I'm not going to dive into that too much here, but replacing a fork is expensive. It's $600 to $1,000 to get a new fork. If you can afford the next bump up that comes with a good fork, I actually think you'll be money ahead, because you only had to buy it once and you bought it with the bike instead of that additional $600 to $1,000. So RockShox Recon RL 130. That's a good entry-level fork for a first bike. At least it's adjustable with air, and it's got some adjustments on it. I don't love that fork, though. If I were buying a bike, I would bump up at least to the Z2. And I like that they kept the Z2 down to 130 millimeters. The Z2 is a Fox 34, a Fox Rhythm 34. I don't feel like the 34s hold up well when they're over 130 mil travel. They get flexier. The more stanchion that's sticking out, the more leverage it has. And the smaller the stanchion, 34 millimeters is the diameter of that tube that's sliding on the fork. And the bigger that gets, the stiffer and more robust it can handle, so it can handle longer travel. So I personally don't love 34s above 130. And so I think they did a great job here. The Z2 is a great fork for the money, so that's great on the comp. And then the Pro, we've got a Lyric, which is an enduro fork. That is a beefy, heavy, stout, stiff, great performing fork. It's the Lyric Select, which is the more affordable version of the Lyrics, but the Select's just fine for a bike. I have a Pike Ultimate and a Pike Select, and I'm happy with either one of them on my bike. So I think the Select was the right way to go here, actually. Now, they've bumped it up to 140 millimeters. So I believe the Pro is going to have different geometry slightly than the other two, unless the axle to crown happens to be the same between all of these. Anyway, they've all got short offset, 42 to 44 millimeter offset. I love that. This is the Race. It's the most affordable one. The cost is £1,299 or $1,730. And here's what it comes with roughly. Same frame, same tires on all of these, same handlebar, but the rest varies from build to build. This has Dior 10-speed with an 11 to 46 tooth cassette, which is going to be fine. It's not quite the range of Shimano 12-speed, but it's close. It's got a RockShox Recon fork, and it has a rigid seat post, so no dropper. For $1,700, I feel like that's a little bit steep in price, but it has that same frame as all the other ones. So it's a great way to get started on this bike, get into this bike, and then upgrade as you can afford to. But if it were me, I'd probably recommend for most people springing for at least the comp. So here's the comp. It comes in at £1,799. That's $2,400. And there's a lot of great bikes hitting that $2,400 mark. This has a really good spec though. Dior 12-speed. It's got the micro spline hub, so you could always upgrade that later if you wanted to. It's got a dropper. It's got a Marzocchi Bomber Z2 with 130 mil travel. I think this is a great build. It's not the world's most bling build. It's only got 2-pot brakes. Who cares? A lot of people will ask me, well, what's the first thing I should upgrade? And my answer is, go ride it 10 times and then see what bugs you and then upgrade. Because the drivetrains of today are so good. And forks today are so good. Even a mid-level fork these days is better than the best fork 10 years ago. So I don't recommend just going out and upgrading anything right off the bat, because nothing's bad on this bike. You just want to go ride it, and then you can fine-tune it to your needs. So I like that build. I like that it has a dropper. 2400 is kind of the sweet spot. We're seeing a lot of great bikes in that price range. Let's take a look at the Pro. It's beautiful, and they always save the beautiful colors for the Pros. It comes with a Lyric. It comes with full SLX, an SLX shifter, SLX derailleur, and an SLX cassette. A lot of companies will hide the cassette in a lower end, heavier, lower performance cassette, but bravo to Nukeproof for keeping it full SLX in a place that most people wouldn't notice if they had skimped. You got 4-pot brakes. You got those name brand DT Swiss 1900 wheels. Same dropper as on the comp. Same bars, but a little bit nicer build, and a lot nicer build. there's nothing I would need to upgrade on this bike. Everything on this would perform just as I need. Personal preference, yeah, those wheels are not my favorite. I've had bad luck with DT 1900 rims. They tend to chop tires for me where I live, but I know a lot of you love those. Price is £24.49 or about $3,300. This is spec-wise better than the Chameleon in every way. Now, we haven't talked about geometry, and that's the most important part. I probably did this backwards, but Nukeproof appeals to a lot of people because of the amount of spec you get for the price. And a lot of people kind of gloss over the geometry, but the geometry is so important. So we're going to take a look at it. Remember, the marketing said it's slack, it's low, it's long, it's all those things that people want these days, but we're going to find out. Okay, first off, bravo, huge bravo to Nukeproof for putting in the sagged and unsagged geometry. That helps a ton when comparing other bikes. I wish every company would do this. All right, let's take a look. There is no small because it's a 29er. And with 29ers, you only have so much room to work with. And so a small is going to be out of proportion. So if you're under 5'6", they're recommending you go with the 27.5 model. So looking at the Geo here, a medium has a 425 reach. I'm sorry, but in 2022, that is not long. That is a compact reach. That's like my Stanton Sherpa. It's going to feel short and compact. It's going to be harder to charge down stuff. In an enduro situation, I'd struggle. I was talking with the Nukeproof guys, and they said, when we get these in, what size do you want, a medium or a large? And I just said, well, I want the reach of the large, but I don't want the 460 seat tube length. I'd have to run like a 100 mil dropper on that. The seat tube's super long, and the reach is super short, so sizing up doesn't work for me. And that's kind of where I've been stuck on this bike a little bit. So the medium has a short, comfortable reach. It's going to feel compact compared to most bikes that I've ridden. The stack is 639. Not bad. That's a nice tall stack. That's taller than I thought for how small the head tube is. Seat tube length 420. That's not bad. On the large, 460 is a little bit large. Effective seat tube angle, 73 degrees. Okay, that is not a steep seat angle. That is very slack. That's very old school. Some people will love that. And it will actually pair pretty well with a 425 mil reach. So when you're seated, it's not going to feel super cramped and the bars are just in your chin. But when you stand up, it's going to feel short, like you want to go over the front. And these are assumptions. You know, bikes don't always ride exactly like their geocharts, but if these geocharts are accurate compared to the other bikes that I've ridden, I expect it to feel more nervous on steep stuff and more likely to go over the front. Now, that short reach gives it a playful feel and helps you manual and bunny hop and play around like that. Lee McCormick from Lee's Likes Bikes with rad sizing would love that Nukeproof has shorter bikes. Personally, I'm not a fan. I wish each of them had the size up reach. So I would want a 450 mil reach. If I'm on a 65 degree slack bike, I want a longer reach so that it doesn't feel short and out of proportion. I want to be able to really stretch out and really lean on that front wheel without feeling like it's right in front of me. So this has been my biggest hang up with the Scout for years is long seat tube, so I can't size up, and short reach. But that doesn't mean it's bad for you. It just means that compared to other bikes, it's going to have a closer feel. The bars are going to feel closer to you when you're standing up. And that seat angle is pretty old school too. You know, the bike I designed has a 77 degree effective seat tube angle. I like steep seat tube angles. This is not a steep seat tube angle. Head tube angle, 65 degrees, 66.5 sagged. This should remind people how important it is to compare sagged versus unsagged. A lot of people will write me and say, how does bike A compare to bike B? I looked at the geo charts and they look similar. And one of those geo charts is measured at sag and one isn't. If you're confused about this, go watch my video called Do Geocharts Lie? It was fascinating how we saw that so many geocharts were not actually accurate to the bikes. They were close in some cases and not close in other cases. So geocharts are the best we have to work with, but they're not always reflective of reality. So this has a 440 chainstay length. That's another thing that is tough for me. When a bike has a longer chainstay than a reach, it feels unbalanced. It feels short in the front and long in the back. It's nice for climbing because the back end, you know, it doesn't want to wheelie because it's so long. And the short reach does make it slightly playful, but the long chainstay is going to make it less playful, less likely to wheelie, less likely to manual and goof around. And I personally like short chainstays. And so the large and extra large, they have a longer reach than chainstay, but the size medium, which I would ride, would feel unbalanced in my assumption. Now, I'm just making assumptions based on these numbers, but I wonder if the 27.5 would be a better fit for me, because that's a long chainstay. It's not short and playful. Now, bottom bracket drop, 70, that's a pretty big bottom bracket drop. So you're probably going to get a little more pedal strikes, especially on the comp that comes with 175 mil cranks. And that could be why the chainstay is so long, because the more the bottom bracket drops, the longer the actual chainstay is. 130 travel on the comp, 140 on the pro. All right, sizing, they're putting me as the smallest person on a medium, and I'm normally 440 to 460 reach on most bikes. So to me, this bike is almost modern and almost what I would want in a 65-degree slack hardcore hardtail. It's not the Goldilocks for me based on paper. I need to ride this because oftentimes when I ride a bike, it's totally different than what I assume. To me, it's not enduro enough to be great at enduro. It's not XC enough to be great at XC. It's got that long chainstay. It's a little bit heavy. It's got those draggy tires with lots of grip, which would lean it toward enduro, but it doesn't have the long enduro reach to give it the stability that it needs. So it's kind of in the middle. I would expect it feels like a short Ragley. Ragleys are kind of short. I don't think they're quite this short, but I don't know. I'm really curious to ride it, and I'm hesitant to say much more, except that I don't feel like the Geo is very modern. I'm loving what I'm seeing on the build spec. I'm loving what I'm seeing with the external cable routing. I love that they built it around a 130 fork. I think that's the sweet spot for hardtails. I love the 65-degree head angle. That's slack, but it's not ridiculous. It doesn't only need steep stuff for most 65-degree head angles. So really the only hang-up I have with this bike is its geometry. And like I said, sometimes bikes don't ride like their Geo charts, so take this with a grain of salt. This might be my favorite bike when I ride one. If it rides how I think it is, and I were to compare this to the Santa Cruz Chameleon, this bike's going to be lighter. It's going to have much better spec for the price, but I'm going to have more fun on the Chameleon, so I would choose the Chameleon. And to me, it all comes down to the frame. I'd rather have a great frame with low-end parts than a mediocre frame with high-end parts. The frame is the heart and soul of a bike. Hopefully this has helped you get inside my head and see all that goes into analyzing bikes online. The ideal world, we'd all demo these bikes and try them and watch reviews of them. But in this day and age, we've got to do the best that we can with the information online. And that's why it's important for companies to have accurate info online and for us to understand what we're reading. Hopefully this has helped you. If you enjoyed this, I will be doing more of them. Make sure you like and subscribe to this video. And if you want this type of analysis with me on the bikes you're looking at, become a patron today. We work together. I share my thoughts with you about bikes I have ridden and bikes I haven't ridden and help you understand kind of what to expect out of these bikes as they come. I love helping people navigate the crazy world of component selection and which bike should I get, and I've got $1,000 to upgrade my bike. Where should I upgrade it? I love sharing my knowledge and experience with people on that stuff over on Patreon. That's how I put food on the table for my family. I'm so grateful for my patrons. You guys are awesome, and you make this possible. Thanks for watching, everybody. There's a party in the mountains, and you're invited.